Happy New Year, everybody. It's Brody, Brody's Garage, episode 18. It is January 2nd today, and the biggest update I have for you is that I cleaned up the garage today. I don't know, about every 2-3 days, the stuff just gets so out of hand around here because I'm working in a relatively small space, and just, man, it's just amazing to me how quickly tools and cans and parts and things get just so in disarray. So I spent a good part of the day just cleaning up and putting the tools away. Would you just look at the tool drawer? I mean, this was my biggest accomplishment today. A few other things that I'll talk about right now, but before I do, I just want you to get a peek of the beast. There it is. It's an LS3 block, Chevrolet Performance, all aluminum heads and block, racing head service, LS3 stock style heads. Didn't think that they needed to be improved upon much. We've got flat top diamond pistons in there. It's about 10-to-1 compression. It's Eagle forged crank and rods, H-beam rods. Oh, it's a Summit Racing Stage 3 turbo cam, and I'll talk about the specs in a little bit. Got an ATI damper on there. It's going to have full roller rocker arms, which I'm going to show you in just a minute. This is a Holley low ram intake with a TIC Performance air-to-water intercooler. It's going to have a couple of precision twin turbos on it. Well, it's going to have a couple of turbos. It's not going to have a couple of twin turbos. It's going to have a pair of mirror image, which means they clock the opposite direction, turbochargers. I did that because I wanted the symmetry. I see all these twin turbo designs, and if you have the same style clock turbo on both sides, then your plumbing on one side is all icky and different. Ugh. So, mirror image. These are Flowtech headers, which we haven't decided if they're going to go down and forward, or up and straight out, or if I'm going to have to cut them apart and re-weld them. I have no idea yet. Motion Raceworks billet valve covers, very nice. It's got the Holley rails and fuel injection system, Holley Terminator X Max fuel management and control. Yeah, it's gonna be pretty badass. 376 cubic inch, 6.2 liters, 4.065 bore, and what's the stroke? 3.59 or something like that. So should be pretty badass. Hello everybody, it is short block assembly part 2. We are continuing on with lifter installation and cylinder heads next. I just lubed up all the roller lifters, put them in their lifter guide trays, and torqued those down to 106 inch-pounds. So those are in, lubricated, and ready to go. I'm going to clean up the deck, put the head gaskets on, and put the studs in, and try to torque the heads down. Well, our block is cleaned up and our head gasket is on. And by the way, this metal 3-layer head gasket just cut the crap out of my finger there. Just went along the side of the edge and just sliced it really good. So be very careful when you're handling these things. I did read that it is recommended to apply some PTFE thread sealant because these studs go down into the coolant jackets of the block. So you want to have some thread sealant on there, like liquid Teflon basically, and we're going to pop these things in and get our cylinder heads on. Well, there it is. Wanted to show you guys a couple different things here. These are 2 sets of full roller rockers, roller fulcrum and tip, that I purchased for my engine. I got these a long time ago when I made, well, some of my first orders online before I really knew anything. Not that I know much now, but as I was learning, you could say, or before I started really learning, I got these. They seem like a pretty good deal. They're a steel construction rocker arm, and they are offset for the LS3 style heads. And I kind of got them, and they sat on the shelf for months, and now that I've been building the engine, I finally pulled them off the shelf and started digging into them. And I kind of poked around online too and read some reviews, and I just was not seeing a lot of good things being said about these. On the surface, they look pretty sturdy. You know, they are a steel construction, and they've got, you know, a roller trunnion and a roller bearing. But I read a lot of reviews where guys were working these back and forth and they weren't really moving. And some other people said that they're awfully heavy. Now, today I just got the Texas Speed ones, which are a similar design, but let's see if we can tell a difference just by looking at them. This one feels, you know, fairly sturdy, and it is a 1.7 ratio. And there's a little bit of wiggle there. If I roll that back and forth, I can get a little bit of play on the roller. And on these look more like a kind of a stock design, I guess, in terms of the body design. But I can tell you that feeling them, this feels a little bit lighter weight. And my guess is if you put them, yeah, definitely. If you go A to B, there's a noticeable difference in the weight difference. And I got to think that a lot of that weight, I'll try to put these down for you here, is over the fulcrum. If you just look at the side-by-side comparison, look how much bigger the roller. It's wider and it's a taller diameter roller. The Texas Speed definitely looks leaner and meaner. Look at the thickness of the metal here compared to there. This one seems to be a lot more ergonomic. And let's see, there's the side-by-side comparison. You can get down there. And I think I made the right decision. These are also made in China. These are made in the US. At least that's what I'm told. And let's see. Just taking my thumb and kind of rolling the fulcrum around in there. Feels okay, I guess. Nothing majorly out of whack there. But there's a more precise fit here. This fits more snugly in its body. And I can tell you that the tolerances are tighter on this right here. Everything about this feels a little bit higher quality. I think these were $650. I will post the actual amount that I paid in my description of this video. But I think these were $6 something and these were maybe $400 or $3 something. And I think there's a case of you get what you pay for here. On a related note, I figured as long as I was upgrading the valve train, and I really want to do this once and do it right, I'm going to send back these Chevrolet Performance rocker stands. These are the stands where the pedestals or the fulcrums mount to, and they're just made of what feels like cast aluminum. And there may be nothing wrong with that. In fact, the guys from Texas Speed says they have no problems with these, but my gut tells me that there's bound to be a little bit of deflection in there. And if it only means a couple of, thousandths or whatever, then so be it. But in terms of breakage, I just feel like running a 600 lift plus cam at over 6,000 RPM, you want this stuff to be as stable as possible. So I went ahead and I ordered the Trick Flow Specialties billet versions of these here. So those should be coming in the mail soon, and I'll be putting my valve train together. I'm going to have to double check my push rod length. That's one thing they also said with the Texas Speed is that these require a slightly shorter push rod length. I forget the amount, 0.175 or something like that. So I already factored that in, and I ordered a new set of push rods. And we're going to check the geometry, make sure everything is lining up correctly. Happy New Year, everybody. I got to share something that was nagging at me. I put together my short block assembly, put the pan on, everything done, called it good. But there was something that was just bothering me. I'm like, I don't know how I feel about letting that go, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. After struggling quite a bit with getting the windage tray and the oil pump pickup tube to fit, I finally read the instructions in the Holley oil pan installation assembly, and it shows you right there, you got a clearance the windage tray. If you've got a full length windage tray or any length windage tray, you got to cut out a section in the front because the pan comes and it dips like this towards the front, and so you got to notch this out to clear those first two counterweights. So I did it just kind of eyeballing it, and when I made the cut, I didn't realize I went a little too far, and I cut through one of these louvers here, and so it no longer has the little bridge of support there. And so this little piece of metal, you can't really see it now, but it's got some flexibility to it. I can push this thing down. And I was just kind of, I don't know, thinking about it all last night. Like if I was driving down a bumpy road and this thing started bouncing, and then I thought, well, even if it doesn't bounce far enough to hit the connecting rod, there might be some vibration going on, and that's going to transfer into the main caps and into the crankshaft. And I just like, there might be some weird harmonics that develop because of it. I just didn't feel right about it. So here's the thing. I had already ordered a second one because in the Holley manual, it specifically mentions this part number, this Chevrolet part number, as being the one that it recommends. You still have to clearance it too, and we'll get to that in a minute. But here's the thing. This morning I woke up and I said, you know what, it'll take me an hour, but I'm going to re-notch this new one, and I'm going to pull the pan off and swap it out and do it right. Do it once, do it right. And I'm so glad I did, because here's why. Not only did I solve this, but laying in the bottom of one of my pistons was this chunk of Play-Doh. Now, we got the kids some Play-Doh for Christmas, and when I was checking my oil pan clearance, I stuck a little piece of Play-Doh in there and smushed it down to see where it was rubbing. Well, I thought I got all of it out, but I didn't. This little hardened piece of Play-Doh, yellow Play-Doh, of all things, my daughter's favorite color, was laying in the bottom of number 1 piston. So I'm glad I made the decision to redo this and pull the thing apart, because now my daughter can have her Play-Doh back. And also, I took a little bit of extra time, and it gives you the specific dimensions. Like, so I took my calipers out and I measured exactly every angle on this. And here's the other thing. I didn't realize that you're supposed to also notch out this corner, which that's where the pickup tube rides. You can see that I kind of modified mine and bent it down, but really, this is what I was supposed to have done. So this is the right way to do it. This is the half-ass way to do it. So I'm going to share this just for somebody out there who might be thinking, you know, I can cut some corners. Don't do it. Don't cut the corners, because you never know what you might find. This is where I'm at with the engine right now. Picking up where we left off, we completed the assembly of the long block. Got the pan situation figured out with the windage tray, pulled the Play-Doh out of the engine, you know, stuff like that. And everything is buttoned up on the bottom end, and the heads are torqued down. This intake is just resting on there right now just to mock it up. Now, I've been talking to some guys on the different forums for the Nova enthusiasts, and there's a big sort of a question mark hanging over, will this thing fit under a 2-inch cowl induction hood, which is right there. It's going to be very close. Now, what I've read is that the makers of TIC Performance intercoolers right here, they claim that this combination, this Holley low ram intake manifold with their low profile air-to-water intercooler, is the exact same height as the Holley high ram intake with no intercooler. I think it's 12.3 inches tall from base to the very crown here. Now, if that's correct, then I'm in good shape, because there are some guys running the high ram intake under a 2-inch cowl hood on a Nova. And so if those guys are working out with clearance, then this should be just right. And I'm, fingers crossed, counting on that happening. Also, what I'm hoping for is that once I get this thing installed in the front end, that I can run the headers down and forward like this. Well, for several reasons. First of all, I think it looks cooler with everything kind of tucked down. Also, lower center of gravity. Just, I want to keep everything down and out of sight if possible. If they don't fit like that, then I'll have to flip them up and forward, which even then, I'm not even sure if that's going to work. I have the Holley mid-mount accessory drive kit that's going to go on here. Their water pump. I've got an AC compressor, alternator, a power steering pump, and again, I'm guessing because I didn't have all that stuff with the car and the engine sitting in the car to take measurements. So fingers crossed it all works out somehow. I've got the Holley 95mm throttle body that'll go here. And then I've got a aluminum Y-pipe elbow that'll feed the twin turbos over here. I'm sorry, will be fed by the twin turbos. I opted for the air-to-water intercooler instead of the air-to-air, which a lot of guys are cramming those down in the front. And what I've noticed is that it seems to me there's no way to put an air-to-air intercooler up in the front there without sacrificing the hood latch. And then you got to put hood pins in the hood, which just didn't want to do that. I wanted to keep the body clean. I want to be able to close the hood. I went for a steel hood rather than fiberglass. You know, I could have saved some weight, but I really wanted to keep the body all steel and just kind of, I want the chunk of a hood closing, you know? So that's why I went with this setup here. All the estimates that I've read about and experts that I've talked to, I should have no trouble pushing this engine past 1,000 horsepower once it's on E85 ethanol fuel. It will spend the majority of its life on pump gas, I think. And I'm guessing that even with the pump gas setup and a low amount of boost, I should have no trouble cranking out north of 650 horsepower as a daily driver. And then what's great about this setup is the Holley Terminator management system for the electronics and the fuel delivery will compensate via a flex fuel sensor, which goes in line between the tank and your engine, and it measures the amount or the content of ethanol in your fuel. And by reading that data, it can send that information to the PCM, which will say, okay, he's got E85 ethanol content. We can increase the boost, we can increase the timing, and therefore get much more power out of the engine. So my goal right now, fingers crossed, is to have a 600 plus horsepower daily driver that I can turn up to over 1,000 horsepower when I want to. And then the question is, will I be able to put all that power to the ground? Probably not. These are Mickey Thompson ET street tires. They are a soft compound rubber. They're 10.5-inch tread. It's, you know, it's a good sized tire, but will I be able to launch this thing hard at the track? Remains to be seen. I'm waiting for my Jake's Performance 4L80E automatic transmission to come in, which should be here within a couple weeks. It's going to have a 10-inch converter, so the stall speed should be 2,800 to 3,000 RPM. So this thing will be good for coming out of the hole, you know, right at its beginning of its power curve. My estimates, I think this thing's going to make really good power from 3,000 RPM on up. And it'll still be fairly drivable. The camshaft has a wide lobe separation angle, so it should have a decent idle quality. I don't think it's terribly radical. So I'm really looking forward to this thing. I built this thing to be my driver car that I can take to the car shows and turn heads, and also take it to the track and turn some impressive time slips. So that's where we're at with the car right now. My next steps are going to be filling in these seams here and up there, and wherever else there's bare metal, joining bare metal, like the dash there where I welded up the ashtray, a few other little spots. I'm going to use a product called All Metal Filler, which is right here. USC All Metal Filler. And I've heard about this from numerous sources, but one in particular, there's a shop that built a car for Randy Wallace's 67 Nova, which is just now heading to the Barrett-Jackson auction. And it was a fantastic build. I'll throw a picture up here. And super fit and finish. And I sent those guys a message, and they were very kind and responded right away. And I asked them some questions, and I said, what do you do about these seams? And they says, we use all metal filler. So you know what? On their advice, I'm going to give it a shot. Also, I got a bunch of used parts from a guy named Brian McGee on one of my Nova enthusiast groups. And he was kind enough to pull all of these parts from various salvage Novas and send them out to me. I just had them sandblasted a few days ago, and they are going to be epoxy primered and prepped for either paint or powder coating. And these vent window frames, that's all going to be disassembled. I have new glass and the new chrome frame that goes here. So basically all I'm salvaging is the outer channel here in the outer frame. I'm going to see if I can do my best to clean up the chrome on here. If not, I'll see if I can get them re-chromed. We have door hardware, glass channels. We have the brake pedal assembly in there. A few other goodies in there. But the next steps will be get these epoxy primered and start prepping them. This here is a lift plate. When the time comes to drop this bad boy in the car, we're going to pull the intake off, obviously, and that bolts right to the valley pan there for a nice secure place to grab the engine. We'll put it on the ground and bolt it up to the transmission, and then we're going to slide that bad boy in there and see how everything fits. I'm really curious to see what kind of clearance I have with the tunnel. I'm dying to see if it's going to clear the hood, and of course at that point I can decide how I'm going to do my exhaust plumbing for the turbochargers. Alright, I guess that's all for today. I'm hoping that I get my buddy Al over here in the next few days, and we're going to pull the window glass back out of the car, get busy on the bodywork, filling in seams and things like that. I actually want to roll the car out of the garage for the first time and just look at it out in the daylight. I'm just going to look at it. Just look at it. Also, I need to drop the shocks on the back here and put them down to the lowest point so the back end of the car sits a little bit lower. Waiting on a couple of fenders. Driver's side should be here soon. Passenger side, who knows when. And then we're going to get this engine and transmission together and get it in the car and get this thing underway. Spring of this year, I'm going to have this thing done. Mark my words. And if I don't get it done by then, just wait longer. That's all for now. You guys have a great evening or morning or whenever you are or wherever you are. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.